All right. Well, good morning, Clara.
Morning.
Happy Easter.
Thank you. You too. To everybody at the church.
So I should let everybody at Trinity know that Clara Wilkinson is one of my nieces. And she's currently working at Choshan Farm in Zambia. I'll leave you to pronounce the town.
The village is called Fimpulu, and it's in Mansa town, Luapula province. So one of the most northern provinces in Zambia, and it is the most rural province in Zambia.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing?
Yeah. So I'm originally from the Hudson Valley in upstate New York. Was born and raised there my entire life. And then when I went to college, I moved to Scotland to go to the University of St. Andrews for all of my undergrad. And then basically from there was only back in the States for a few months before coming to Zambia with the US Peace Corps. So my parents are very artistic, but they were also really interested in animals and gardening and all sorts of environmental things. So I feel like my entire childhood was sort of centered around this sort of intersection between a lot of outdoors and sustainability ideas, but also the artistic and creative side of things. So yeah, that's kind of how I eventually ended up in a very non-traditional job, like working in Zambia.
What did you how did you get involved with the Peace Corps, and what did you study at St. Andrews that led you to the Peace Corps?
I had studied it's called sustainable development, but I paired it with ecology. So a lot of it was about natural resource management and conservationism, and this concept that you can't just look at the natural environment, but you have to include the people and the human aspect as well. And because I was already in Scotland, I really had enjoyed living abroad, and I knew I wanted to keep working or studying internationally. But since none of my job opportunities had been working out, someone had suggested joining the Peace Corps. And the more I started looking into it, it just seemed to be basically everything that I was looking for, where I could still be international. I could work at something I was interested in. And I basically applied to only work in the environment or in agriculture. And they set me up with a program in Zambia, which was called Linking Income, Food, and the Environment. And it was perfect for me. So that's kind of how I ended up in Zambia. It was a country I'd never heard of. I thought they were trying to send me to Namibia. I had to Google it. And 6 years later, here I am still. So yeah.
You were with the Peace Corps for 3 years, is that right?
2 years originally, and then I did what's called an extension, where I found another organization to work for, which was Choshan Farm, which is where I'm currently working now. They're in the same province, and while I was in Peace Corps, we're so rural that it's actually really hard to set up big programs here. And I needed a place to do a livestock training that I was setting up with some small scale farmers. And this was the only place that actually had all the types of animals I needed in the entire province. So I organized a big training here for about a week. This was about halfway, maybe about a year into my Peace Corps service. And that's how I met Jeremy and Bethany. And Jeremy and I discovered this love for animals and livestock and all of these other agriculture related topics, and they had horses. So I started coming out here to ride. And just from there, I had started talking to them about how I wanted to stay longer, but I didn't know how to do that. And they basically created this job for me where they're like, we desperately need agricultural training here, but no one has the time or the ability to do it. And so I was only planning to stay another year. And again, it's just worked out so well that I've stayed multiple years. So I did Peace Corps about 2 years, and then they kind of hired me out for a year or so, and then I fully switched over to working full-time with Choshan Farm.
So what's the mission of Choshan Farm, and how does your agricultural training fit into the overall scheme that they have there?
So Choshan Farm is a missions organization. It's a registered NGO, but it is run by 2 missionaries, Jeremy and Bethany, who started it about 15 years ago. But the entire premise of the organization is that even though it's ministry oriented and run by missionaries, very little of the work they do is what you would consider traditional missionary work. They fully believe that they've been called by God to be here, but we're in a community where there's 5 churches here and pastors, and there's a really solid sense of Christianity, but there's so many of these other needs. And the organization is basically set up on the principle that God wants everyone fully taken care of, and community development is one way to spread the love of Jesus and to fully complete what Jesus was trying to do on earth. So the core of the organization is basically allowing people to know Jesus through relationships with the community, and with this deep-rooted idea that through people and through various works, we can come to know God and Jesus better, and the church will be strengthened, and also people's physical and emotional needs can be met throughout the work as well.
What are some of the community needs in that area?
Well, agriculture is actually one of the biggest. In Zambia, over 80% of the entire country is small scale farmers. And even in our community, even the people that have different full-time jobs are still farming on the side, because it's the source of food, it's the source of life, it is the entire thing that the community is set up on. So my job is incredibly important, which is basically food security and making sure that people have access to legitimate food on a daily basis. So there's that aspect, but there's also education needs. There's one school here for about 5,000 people who are in desperate need of it. And obviously that can't all be met. So about a decade ago, Bethany started a school, and they've finally reached grade 5 this year, and they're going to be starting grade 6 in January. So there's that need. There's all sorts of health needs. Just we're in a place that's so far removed from the capital that there actually hasn't been any medication we have a local clinic, and there's been no medication sent there in over a year. So we're really talking the most basic needs that people need, that just aren't always getting met. Some of them are in other ways, but our organization basically has the community bring forth needs to us, and programs get set up based on what people are telling us they need and that they're missing. So rather than us coming in and saying, okay, we need this, this, and this, a new church, we need this, we're spending the time And they've really laid an amazing groundwork here to say, you come and tell us what's missing. And then from there, we can set up something that's actually going to be functional and work and be relevant to people's lives here.
Mhm. Could you sort of lay out what you might consider a typical day in your job, and how do you see God at work in that day?
I'm laughing because there's literally no such thing as a typical day here. Basically, Jeremy and I started my program together, and I still touch base with him often, but since I manage and run and organize my entire food security program, I basically set up my time to look like how I want it. And the other thing is, because it's agriculture, everything is completely seasonal. So for example, at the moment we are just getting into harvest time. So all of my work and days are revolving around checking people's fields and doing trainings so that they harvest things properly, and organizing people being able to sell things to us for either to use at the school or on our farm. And but then in a couple months, when harvest finishes, everything's gonna change course again. So I try to kind of split up my time according to all these programs that I'm doing. And then it also will be different depending on whether I've set up meetings. I also just get a lot of farmers that come directly to my house and set up times with me, or I go directly to their fields and work with them on a one-to-one basis. So it can be entirely different day to day, but that's part of what I love about it. You just have to be really flexible and kind of go with whatever is being asked or requested at that time, or whatever the season is. I feel like you can see God really clearly. It's hard to be in a situation that is so poor and needy as a rural village in Zambia. A few years ago, National Geographic actually had an article where Zambia was literally listed dead last nutritionally in the entire world. So it's hard because you see a lot of suffering and you're getting exposed to a lot of really hard situations. But through all that, there's just this really clear, palpable feeling that God is at work here, and there's still a lot of beauty and grace and all of these other things that just come out in daily life here. And I feel like you can really feel that strongly. And I think without God in this, it would almost be impossible to do this job, because it really is, it can be so challenging. And without actual heavenly support, I don't think I at least would have the strength to keep going sometimes. So I feel that very clearly. And I think that he is fully responsible for the amount of beauty and joy that can actually come out in a situation like this, because it's pretty remarkable.
Mhm. And where do you see your future going?
Well, I was just explaining to you, I am hopefully going to be working on a part-time master's, though I will be staying in Zambia with Choshan Farm while I'm doing that. So I have a few sort of personal things that I'm working on. Jeremy and Bethany have been really encouraging with that. But basically the idea is I'm trying to stay here as long as I possibly can. I love my job. I love where I'm at. I love the sense of community that's here. I think it's going to be so hard for me to ever find that again. So I don't have an exact time frame for how long I will be here. I'm basically here until it feels like it's time to go. So I'm sorry for how vague that is. But I guess all that is to say is I'm basically trying to set my life up so that I can stay here as long as possible, but still accomplish all these other things that I want to, that are going on in my life as well. I hope that answers the question.
And your the master's degree that you'll be working on is
basically, it's global food security. So it correlates directly to what I'm doing here. Yeah.
All right. Well, I see our time is getting a bit long here, but thank you for recording this with me. It has been wonderful to talk to you without having the rest of the family around. And happy Easter again. I'll just
you too. Oh,
I was just gonna say I'll just end the recording and then we can keep chatting.
Sure.
Okay.
So thank you all so much.